Hello?
Just don't care.
No, triangle. I remember my first time I passed out because of a triangle because I refused to tap. I remember that. It was like for a week I was like Rob Pattinson, Batman in my
Crazy. So you guys were speaking a different language. I didn't understand any lingo.
Some of the
I would even
terms.
use all the technical terms, really. I was trying to keep it general.
Yeah.
Had him in a guillotine, and then the hip escape was just crazy. My ankle hurt.
Little shawty looking better with no makeup. She brighten up my day when she wake up. I know the mother got the same stuff, but I'ma keep it real, there ain't no fake love till our day come. Little baby was.
Is that a bear paw?
I literally
Y'all are
was just thinking that.
Y'all are different.
Yeah.
Y'all are different. Jim Bay drumming a bear paw. I mess with it.
We literally have a segment in the pod when Evan's here. It's like snack time.
Snack time.
He always pulls up, and it's always the loudest snacks, like chips or something.
Apples and chips.
Talk while he's chewing.
Yeah. He doesn't time his bites well at all, man. You hear the saliva particles and shit.
Oh, by the way,
So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, special guest again. Today we have Incognito. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So that's what I'm wearing right now. So shout out Incognito. I don't even know if I just said it the same way I did before.
You
But
said it like
these are
a
dope.
Spaniard,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
Go. And we got the tee right there. Dusty's rocking the tee, unreleased tee. So clothing brand, how would you describe yourself? Actually, I'll let you do the introduction.
Yeah,
Talk to us.
I'd say we're a Montreal-based clothing brand. I'd say the most important part about us is making sure that every piece has a narrative going to it. You know,
That's dope. Yeah.
it's not something that's done carelessly. So incognito, as the word, means unknown, and so what we're always looking for is opportunities to bring people who are unknown into spotlight when they should be shining. You know, so in our city, whether that's bringing up artists, photographers, models, whatever it is, it's always about shining a light on the people who ought to have it. And for some reason, we've been sleeping on them. We've been lacking.
Yo, she's ready, bro. That's crazy. You got
My
right to
bad.
cook it, huh?
My
It's
bad,
amazing.
my
Okay.
bad.
No, it's amazing. So thanks for being here, first of all.
Appreciate you.
I love the concept. I love the brand. That's why I wanted to have you on. So actually, let's talk about it. First of all, we have the whole family here. So for people who've been wanting NSL back, we're all back. Durs is back from up north.
yeah. You move back to town.
Yeah, boys, jump in whenever, right? Like, if you want to take my spot or whatever, just let me know. If you want to talk. Okay. So, yeah, today, for a long time, you guys have been asking for clothing, like talking about merch, learning about merch. And so last year, I guess it was, last summer,
Yep.
I met Miriam here in Montreal in Chinatown, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It was at the Baha'i event.
Yeah. So Chinese.
Yeah. And so there was like, at the event, there was artists performing, but there was also little like pop-ups, like little businesses, merch lines. And you guys being one of them.
Yeah.
I remember we went up, we spoke a bit, and then full circle now, when we started this podcast in the winter time, and then I knew we've discussed for a long time, like the idea of merch. And so boom, a few months ago, I texted you like, yo, we'd love to have you on to learn. And
It worked
here
out.
we are. So it's amazing. So thank you for being here, first of all.
No, for real. Thank you for having us. Like any opportunity to be able to talk and share in the space with somebody from the city. You already know.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. And we have a lot of questions, and I don't want to hog all the attention. So feel free, like you can interrupt me and stuff. But I guess first of all, you gave a great intro of what your brand, I guess, represents really, which is dope. I guess we can start off because when I start and when I speak for all of us, when I say this, like whenever I want to venture a new avenue in the whole music NSL thing, I really take the time to digest the idea and study it before going in. So like this podcast, for example, is like something we talked for months before doing it.
Yeah.
And like everything, you know, a new TikTok page, we really take time to be like, hey, are we actually going to do this? Because I'm the type of person, if I do it, like I full send. Like I won't just half-ass something. I really want to do it properly.
Yeah.
So merch is something that for a while now, like we've been down like to rock like dad caps or whatever. Like we've been super like tempted. yeah.
I mean, I see it.
Yeah, you see it. You
Right
see it.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there.
But I was always like, I love the idea, but like, let's not be those guys. And this is not to call anyone out, but in my opinion, I see a lot of artists who are in the music world, artists that they start dropping merch like way too early when they're still like irrelevant. And I don't mean that in a rude, disrespectful way, but if you don't have a fan base or a brand or anything, and they just put out like, I just feel like our timing was never like, we weren't there yet, right? So
Yeah.
we really want the NSL foundation to be like solidified before branching out into those avenues. So that's some things we'll talk about today. I know a lot of artists, merch is a huge part of being a musician nowadays,
Has
right?
to be.
Has to be. It's like one of the biggest like avenues within, other than touring and streaming, then the third thing you think of is merch. So today I think it's be super valuable for us and for these guys watching. I think we should just start from ground zero. Hypothetically speaking, if we or them wanted to,
We or them.
or us,
Yeah.
want to start a clothing brand, like right now, like we're like, you know what, we're ready
Today.
for this, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So you could kind of you could also obviously customize it to how your story's been. I understand that every company is different, this
Most
and that.
definitely, yeah.
But just give a brief intro, because I know that's like a 3-hour story. But just like the main things that maybe a 4-hour story. But yeah, maybe just like things that people wouldn't necessarily think of, like other than, oh, this t-shirt's cool and people will buy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just like that foundation, and we'll just deep dive from there.
I mean, where to start?
I know. I mean, I think for us, it was a little bit simpler because I feel like we've always kind of had that like out of the box kind of mindset. So when Miriam brought up the idea of like making a clothing brand to me, I was like, okay, like what direction are you thinking? Because from a marketing perspective, obviously, whenever you're trying to create a product, you're looking for a hole in the market, right? So for us, one of like our main interests has recently been like anime, and that's kind of how we started it. We were like, let's do something more anime, more streetwear,
Dope.
because we don't find that in Montreal there's a brand that currently does that and does it well.
Yeah. I think it's a mixture of things. It also has to go in the way that you view it, right? Like, for example, just saying merch versus a clothing brand, those are two completely different businesses.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
They don't overlap in the way people naturally think, because you think clothing, you think it's one piece and it should be communicated in the same way, right? But what is somebody saying by wearing your thing? That's what you have to be thinking. So from a merch perspective, if you're looking at like, let's say a Travis Scott or a Justin Bieber or whatever it is, it's a lot easier for them to simply put their name on it, because by being associated with the name, somebody's telling you, they're communicating an aspect of themselves already to the public, right?
Essentially because they already have their brand, right? Like Travis Scott is a brand.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
it indicates to people looking, like they see it, like, right? That's
Yeah,
what
exactly.
you mean.
There's an association there. It's a form of self-expression. That's what clothes is, right? So for somebody who's on a smaller scale, I think it's more important to have the creative aspect, because the reality is that your name is just not going to mean anything to people who don't know who you are.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If I say I'm wearing like Deborah Susan, that doesn't mean anything. But
Shout out Deborah.
shout out Debbie Suze. But if I say that, you know, on my shirt has, I don't know, Jaden Smith, SZA, that has you have an inclination to kind of understand who I am or a side of myself, and that's the reason that I'm wearing it. So I would say for somebody who's a smaller artist or who's a brand, the most important thing that you can do is, before you start making the product, before you start getting creative with how it's going to look, what are you trying to have communicated by the person who's repping that? So for us, for example, it was down to the name, and we had that little anime base, and it evolved into something much further than that. I think when people look at our clothes now, you don't really think anime, but it was the idea of taking something that we all love, that has an art style, and communicating in a way where even if you didn't partake in that fandom, that you'd still have a way of connecting with it and thinking it's cool. The example that we would take all the time was like Harley Davidson. You don't have to ride a Harley to rock the crap. Like it's dope. You know what I mean?
Facts.
People mess with the design, and people like what having that type of vintage, having that type of design says about them.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take more East Asian. I mean, our designer is Korean, you know. Shout out to Daniel Cho. Big love to Danny. But he has his own cultural influences and where he comes from, and he applies that art style to a piece. So I'd say think of it, before you think of putting the design onto a shirt, think about what you're trying to say by doing that action, and then use that as your basis for your
I
creativity.
think that's a great answer. So well spoken, these two. It's
Yeah,
unreal.
crazy.
I'm realizing, like, wow, we suck at talking.
No, you guys are killing it. You guys are killing it.
For example, like, you know, if we were to just put, like, Wizard was telling me, who's a good friend of mine who's in the music world as well.
Shout out Wizard.
Shout out Wizard, yeah. He was telling me, like, because long story short, a friend of mine gifted me, just to be nice, like a T-shirt with the NSL logo on it,
Yeah,
right?
no, fire.
So super dope, very sweet, very
Yeah.
kind gift. And I always wear it when I do my live streams on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, to have the brand there. And he was saying, he's like, because I was talking about, you know, we're going to have you guys on and talk merch and all that. And he's like, yeah, bro, but like, if you're going to do merch, like, don't make it look like this. And not a diss to the person who gifted me this, because for me, it's dope. It's my brand.
Yeah.
But for people to actually want to buy your T-shirt or whatever, it can't just be your logo. It needs to like be like a dope piece of clothing, right? You know what I mean? And once your brand is established, then yes, you could just plug that logo. if I were to just put the NSL logo on a t-shirt, like, yeah, like family and friends would buy it, but not like a random person that would just come across and be like, yo, this is actually a dope t-shirt. You understand what I mean? And when you're, Dusty, hop in.
You know what I say, like, is pretty nice, though, is that never stop laughing as a catchphrase is something that I think people will enjoy.
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
I think it's, like, something that you can live by. It's, like, some sort of motto of
Absolutely.
some sort anyways.
Absolutely.
I love the saying.
Which
I say it all the time.
yo, me too. And I'm so happy because when we started making music, not to get too much on a tangent, but just like NSL is something that we created from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because we wanted more than just because we're not like a band, but we're still like a group. You know, we're friends outside of music, and
Plays
then
piano.
yeah, exactly. they
Oh, really?
they all take
Like
like part-time piano players. Yeah.
I know like 2 songs. Yeah.
That's 2 more
You
than
were
me.
rocking it.
Exactly.
Like-
Yeah, I know. You sounded good. Yeah. But yeah, so from the beginning, we understood that you need a brand behind it. Like it could have just been Drew and like, but it's like, it needs more than that because there's so many talented artists out there that are making good music. You just got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
why would someone go out of their way to listen to me and us instead of listening to Travis or Bieber? You know what I mean? Like, we're technically competing with any other artist, and nowadays it's so accessible that like everyone makes good music. That part is the part. Obviously you need that part, but it's like the easy part, meaning everyone has good music.
Yeah.
You need to stand out from that, right? So back to the whole like merch and stuff, like people that'll just like, they think that their 1,000 IG followers are going to go buy their t-shirts. It's like,
We've been there.
yo, and that's definitely something that we're going to dig into because
100%.
I understand, we could even get into it now, but I understand because I'm the guy who does like all the social media and marketing and stuff. And I have a passion for marketing, as these guys know, but people don't convert. Meaning, you know, followers, they you know, it doesn't go that deep. You have layers of fans, right? Like you'll have like the mass, like casual listener that'll listen to your song, whatever. But then you have like the hardcore fans that are really gonna actually fund your business, right? Like pay, in our situation, pay tickets to go to your shows, buy your t-shirts, stuff like that. Like actually go out their way to support you financially. You need to understand that you need to appeal and please both of those audiences as an artist or as an entrepreneur. Like not everyone, it would be stupid for us to think that all of our 9,000 IG followers are going to go buy our t-shirt.
Yeah.
It would literally be dumb to think that. But some people, unfortunately, they really think that, right?
Yeah.
And it's even like, because us, we offer a free product being music. You just go on your Spotify and play it.
Yeah,
We're not
it's
even
easy,
asking
easily.
people to go pay a penny, right? And even that, it's like the translation, meaning like people don't even convert in that situation. It's hard to get people to go listen to your song. So I can't even imagine convincing people to go buy and spend their own money on your t-shirt. That's what's crazy. It's like even deeper than what we're doing already. So I can only imagine, like, and I see it, like some of these guys putting out t-shirts for sale too early, and it's like, no disrespect, but like I feel like your timing is wrong, you know?
I don't know if not to disagree with you here majorly. I do agree that not having a big enough outreach is only going to hurt you. But I think it's a question of what's your ambition with the drop? There's so many creative ways with going about how to put out clothing. And also, like, what are you trying to communicate by doing that? So, for example, let's say you have an artist and he just slaps his name on a shirt and he starts selling it, right? And he has like 100 followers. If he's using that drop as a sketchbook or where he's going to go later on in the future, some people are really invested in being a part of a process. So if you communicate that this isn't the end goal, right? Like you're not just putting out something that's lazy, but that everything is intentional, people subscribe to the intention behind the action more so than the product that you're actually doing. Because in the same breath that you could say like, everybody comes out with good music, it's not enough, right? I could say, well, there's so many people with really, really dope designs that are designers online, and nobody's buying their shit. Like nobody's interested in any way, shape, or form. You get Supreme that just puts a brand name on it, little BOGO, right? And it goes for however much it goes for.
Yeah.
Sometimes simplicity doesn't really hurt you. It's more, there's something called cult following, right? And that's the type of following that any type of business, whether that be music, clothing brands, athletes, that's what you're trying to invest in and to cultivate. It's people who, by wearing your thing, by purchasing, by participating in that business transaction, they feel like they're getting a part of their identity.
Yeah.
Right? That's what those diehard people that you're talking about, that's the actual name for them, is a cult following. And the name is telling in and of itself. What is a cult, right? regardless of what you do, whatever it is that you put out there, they're invested in you and in the story and in the narrative. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily like a too early time to put out merch. I think if your ambition and your intention is to put out merch because your name's on it, it's going to sell, then 90% of the time that you're putting it out, it's too early.
Yeah.
But if you're there to kind of show the process and behind the scenes, some people like the nitty gritty, you know, some people like being in on the thing that's not out there yet.
You're right.
Also, to add to that too, like eventually the people that are diehard right now, like how cool is that for them to look back on that? Like, hey,
100%.
Exactly.
we were there from day one. We have your original shit that's like limited and like, you know.
Yeah,
it's all
you
about
see
building
it.
that brand, honestly. Like, yes, it can be a little bit too early. Yes, it'll look scuffed in a few years. Like looking back on it and being like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Already
Like I should have
happens
used
right
this
now.
font, you know?
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's as long as you have those intentions, like this is not like the end all be all. Like I'm going to grow from this. I'm putting this out so I can learn, see what my fans like, even if there's only 10 of them who buy it.
Yeah.
See what, you know, does well in terms of like views or anything like that. Like at the end of the day, you're always trying to learn, I think.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's
And
also
like,
the same with music too.
Exactly.
yeah, talk
You
about
look
that a
back
bit.
Rough drafts, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
you look back on stuff from 2-3 years ago, you're like, there's no way I would do it like that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like we've talked about this. I'm glad you bring that up because like we have songs that are like 3 years old, say, and the sound quality, like it's terrible. Like in terms of like from a sound engineering standpoint, we all do it ourselves. So, you know, we're learning progressively. We just like you're saying, like you preferred like the fonts you were using 2 years ago are trash. Looking back, it's the same for us. Like we could look back and like, our old songs were so poor in regards to that sound quality compared to now, but it's part of that journey. Like people will tell me, why don't you delete your old stuff if you think it's not as good? Yeah, but it shows that progression. So same thing for you guys. So when I'm saying all this, I'm not saying it in a way like you need 1 million followers. Like I don't want it to come off as like an arrogant way. I guess I mean more like, people like kind of go into it without maybe doing the proper homework and, you know, study the
most
industry. Like they just think like, yo, like they just assume everyone's going to buy their t-shirt. And it's like, bro, it's deeper than that. I guess that's what I mean. But where you're coming from saying like, if you're kind of planting the seed and growing and building with intention, I guess that's the biggest thing. If you have that, like it's deeper than just a t-shirt and there's like the vision, or I don't know how to say it. Like,
There's a point, you know?
yeah,
There's an
exactly.
objective,
It's
there's
not
a
just a
purpose to
t-shirt.
everything.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Then I would highly say there's no too early time. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's about there's different perspectives in how you do it, right? Some people are, if I was to take like a music comparison, you take somebody like Kendrick Lamar who releases like an album that people will say like is a 9 on 10 every 4 or 5 years. And you hear it and you can hear the intention and everything, the quality and everything. This is not a song that has 2, 3, 4 drafts. This is something that's been worked on for like a year. And you hear that richness, right?
Yeah.
That's one perspective, is that every time that you shoot, you should shoot accurate. And then there's the other kind, and I think it's a more new generation. I think Drake was kind of ahead of his time with this. But you see it with like Doja Cat, you see it with any artist that's like on SoundCloud and that came up. They're invested in having like transparency in the learning curve, right?
Like
They're not
Russ.
afraid.
Russ is a really good example.
Russ is
of
a
that.
great example.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not afraid to put things out with the acknowledgement that you will get better, right? But not afraid to show that to the world and that those flaws and that fault. And some people really connect with that because at the end of the day, like not to get bigger into the economics of it, you know, like capitalism is about the ego. It's about the consumer and themselves. And some people like to see their own like imperfections and that the own fact that like they're trying and it takes multiple times reflected in the person that they're trying to emulate by purchasing their stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, so
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress. This is a work in progress, and I'm here to participate with you because I feel seen through that.
Yeah. Authenticity.
Depends.
And authenticity is becoming like, especially with TikTok and stuff, people love it. Like it's not all about glamour and like, you know, being all perfect anymore. It's really like, okay, like that like that rawness behind anything. Artists, whether it's music, whether it's clothing brands, like it's
100%,
dope. And that's one good thing I've noticed from when TikTok became big. That's when like it kind of shifted that narrative, in my opinion. Because IG was always like beautiful pictures, right? But now it's like you scroll on TikTok, it's like they're not like pro looking videos and stuff, but it's just that like authentic feel, which is dope.
Yeah.
Okay, so many directions we could take this. You guys good? If you guys want to ask, should I go ahead?
Yeah, it's so cute. I love that. Yeah.
The synergy on the long couch.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
We're enjoying the listening.
Okay, dope.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Let me know if I'm talking too much about it.
Yo, no, we'll let you cook. You guys are actually doing amazing. So there's so many directions I want to take this because, man, I know you don't have your production guy here, but
Yeah.
I do at one point kind of want to talk about that a bit because
100%.
Yeah.
like things that, because I'm, as I said, since it's an idea that I'm starting to take more seriously, not in the immediate future that we're actually thinking of doing this, but it's really, it's there. Like I'm studying the industry a bit, meaning
Most
I'll watch
definitely,
videos and stuff to like learn how these guys do it. I guess, I don't know if we want to get into the marketing side first. We could get, well, I think we should talk marketing since, you know, you're here and that's like your sauce.
Okay.
And then we'll move into production just a bit, like just to get that idea as well, more for us when we're going to do it.
Yeah, most definitely.
So marketing, I think it's the most important thing in regards to any business. Is everything okay?
A little problem with the log couch.
yeah, long couch causing trouble. Yeah, marketing is the most important thing. I say it all the time, even for music. I mean, that's how you have bad artists, quote unquote, bad, that make it big, and tiny artists that are amazing, right? Like it's marketing, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to know and it depends how deep you guys want to go and being vulnerable and honest about your situation. Like feel free to, you know, skip over whatever you want to skip over. But I know as a content creator myself and this, that, and I've never tried to sell anything, but I can only imagine how difficult that, you know, first drop is, and like so many, yeah, that says a lot. So many like unforeseen circumstances that pop up, and you're like, damn, I never would have thought of this and this and that. So you coming in as the marketing person, what do you think to anyone who's starting the merch game or who's struggling to either see sales or growth on social media? Like, what do you think nowadays and in your experience is the biggest kind of thing holding back, and assuming they have dope pieces? Like, for example, this I find super dope. It's like one of my guys from high school started this. I find it dope, but it's all like, there's so many dope pieces out there that don't sell.
Yeah.
And so, because they're unknown, right? So what would you say? Yeah, exactly. I love it. What do you think is the biggest thing or the biggest either struggle in your experience, or you see from an outsider's perspective these other competitor brands doing, and you're like, oh, they're doing it wrong. You know what I mean?
That's such a
I'm
good
so
question.
invested. in
Also,
what you're
I
about
do
to say.
understand that this is super subjective, because I do
Yeah.
understand that like there's certain ways that work for some people, just like us with music. Some things work for other people that don't work for you. So
Yeah.
it's all in your experience. That's our disclaimer. But you know, we would love to learn.
I mean, okay, like disclaimer, when we started Incognito, I was still like in school. Like I studied fashion marketing. So like everything I was doing at the time, I was like, it was half intuition and half what I was like actually like being taught, you know? And I like, not to brag, but I trust my intuition a lot. I think that my instincts are very good, and I think that's kind of what helped us in regards to that like first drop era.
Thank you.
But I feel like we also, I don't want to say we got lucky, but we were fortunate enough to have that account of yours that already had like decent amount of followers to it.
Okay.
So when we had first started Incognito, Miriam turned like an old Instagram page of hers into the Incognito account essentially. And we also, between like everyone in the team, we have like a very vast network, and it's only grown since then. So the number one thing in this era that you have to prioritize is really just marketing yourself out there. Like, even if you feel annoying, even if you feel like, oh, you know, like nobody cares, like nobody's gonna pay attention, like people kind of just like tap through stories, for example, nowadays, like there is no shame in trying to put it out there. Like the only bad thing that can come from it is someone just keeps going through. But at the end of the day, they were still interacting with it to a certain degree. It'll push it somewhere else,
Right.
regardless. So you just have to be willing to kind of like put your dignity aside
Be obnoxious.
and be obnoxious,
Yeah.
and, you know, like make that TikTok in the middle of the street, you know, like go out and hand out business cards to people. You really have to be willing to just put it all on the line if you want to succeed. You know, like especially when you're small, like obviously bigger brands like Supreme, for example, like
Yeah.
personally, I'm not buying a T-shirt that just has like a red box and
Right.
a word written on it. But
Don't make enemies now.
I'm not making enemies. I'm saying for me personally, like, look at what I'm wearing. That's not my style.
Yeah, exactly,
Facts. Most
exactly.
But they've cultivated a mindset, especially like amongst male teenagers, for example, where it's like, if I get this shirt, like I'm the GOAT, basically.
Yeah, like you're
Mhm.
part of the squad. It's like the Nelk Boys with
Exactly.
Full Send. I mean, they're
Yeah.
doing amazing for that too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
symbol of status in a way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
It tells you who you are, where
It's
you're
like,
at.
oh, like I'm part
Yeah.
of the gang almost,
yeah,
you know?
involvement.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. Like, I think as a creator of any kind, your end goal is always that you want to build that community around you. And I think for us, like, obviously, a lot of it is based around wanting to uplift that community at the same time, because we fully acknowledge we would not be anywhere without them.
Mhm.
Like, those first 400 followers, even though they didn't know where this account had come from,
Yeah.
they were still like, okay, maybe you guys are cooking a little bit over here.
Yeah.
You know? And from there, we were able to grow that into what we have now.
Mhm.
Like, we have so many people who come up to us and are like, okay, so when's the next drop happening? And we're like, please bear with us. We're in the studio. We're cooking.
We're cooking.
That's
I
so
think-
dope.
I think it's also a matter of how do I say it? We had a very good understanding, luckily, within us of what we were,
Mhm.
and so then just putting the consistency and the dedication to communicating that
Yeah.
was probably the biggest learning gap,
Mhm.
but also the thing that helped us progress the most.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think people, when they say they're consistent, they mean within their specialty. So, for example, like my guy who does production, shout out to Yusuf, you know, if he's trying to be consistent with production, then his understanding of that is to consistently make good clothes, right? If we're looking at my designer, Daniel Cho, shout out to him again, he'll look at like improving himself as an artist, right? Like improving his art style and so on and so forth. But within the process of that, we not once discuss the person who's purchasing. So there's a loss of communication of effort there, right? And the whole ideology of like, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Well, in marketing, no, it doesn't. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So
I know
it's always
exactly what you mean.
about communicating the process, communicating the fact that you're working. And from the get-go, we were so consistent in that.
Yeah.
I can put that out. Like we were ruthless with the amount that we went out, we talked to everybody, we went to all those, you know, if you know one person, I'm hitting them up until they have an opportunity to for me to go there and meet other people. And then it's networking and networking. You're included, you go to all the parties, you go to all the events, you know what
That's
I mean?
how we met. So
Yeah.
boom.
Exactly. And it
Mhm.
pays off, you know what I mean? It's a podcast a year later. So
Yeah.
it's about like being ruthlessly in the pursuit of communicating who you are
Yeah.
Mhm.
and not also letting that get in the way of creating an inauthentic product. I think the fact
Mhm.
that we're teammates and that we have an ability to like compartmentalize everything that we do,
Yeah.
you know, we have somebody that does design, it takes it off their shoulders, the need to
hmm
focus on the marketing and whatnot. But for somebody who's on a smaller scale, like I know people who have done it all by themselves in one, it's just grind everywhere. It's learn
Yeah.
everything and commit to everything 1,000%. So,
Mhm.
um,
And going back to what you said earlier, like, it is especially important to understand like what your true mission is, like as a brand, as a creator.
100%, yeah.
Like, that's one of the first things I brought up when we were discussing Incognito. I was like, okay, what is like our vision? What is our mission? Like, what is the intent here?
Mhm.
What do we want to accomplish
Mhm.
with Incognito? Because from there, that's how you build a brand. That's how you find out what avenues are going to be the best to communicate what you want to
Most
do,
definitely.
you know? So for us, it was again about like shining a light on people who
Mhm.
are kind of hidden in the shadows, you know? They're
Mhm.
not really out in the spotlight. And just bringing everyone together to kind of like share that vision alongside with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, from like
Yeah.
a technical side of it, if I was gonna be like nitty gritty about how it went, it's the fact that we as four people, when I built the business in the sense of when I went after the people that I went after specifically in my life to play the roles that they do, I was looking at 3 or 4 things primarily that every person on that team had to have. So firstly, it was a moral aspect. You and I have to agree on what it means to do good business and what the extent of that goodness should be. All of us agree that we love Montreal. We're a diverse group of people. Like nobody in the group comes from the same background or whatnot. And we love the fact that Montreal as a city is so community oriented, you know, like artists support artists, people support people. And we wanted to communicate that to the world, right? Second thing was that we all have the same level of like either potential or the skill that we have right now. We're committed to having a higher level of that, right? So everybody on the team is incredibly intelligent. but also incredibly diligent. Talent is not enough, right?
Facts.
It's dedication to improving it. It's the Bruce Lee mentality of I fear a man who's thrown one kick 1,000 times, not a man who's thrown 1,000 kicks once. So people who would put in that work to get there, right? And thirdly, it's the fact that we have to communicate in a way that makes sense to all of us. So internally, if we have those aspects working, then all it is about promoting that and working externally. So we were able to work with, other artists and so on and so forth by sharing the vision and the message of what incognito, the word, meant to how we act intentionally in everything that we do. Like, people messed with it because it's a reflection of the city that we're in. So we got a lot of gateways open because people saw themselves reflected in the message or saw themselves wanting to promote that message as well. So we got kind of fortunate with that, where there was a lot of music collectives, shout out to Bahai.
Shout out Bahai, actually. They're
incredible.
Very dope. Yep.
But that led us into those doors when we were smaller and no problem welcomed us into the house. And we used one event to meet other people who are music producers and putting on other events. And then it escalates to a point where you're in Toronto, you're taking business trips. But it comes down from the message that we had, people messed with that. Yeah. And it was really us knowing like the geography where we are and the culture here and trying to fit our product into that culture.
It's crazy because you literally like answered my next question without me even asking it, which is super dope because I think whether you're starting a business, like any direction, I think the team, what I find impressive is when, by the way, you could tell the way you structured your business that you were really like you planned it out really well, just the way you answered that. And I think that's really important. But the team aspect, like to get a good team together is probably the biggest challenge, right?
Definitely.
Because like those 4 roles that you have locked in, like I'm saying 4 there, I think that's what it was anyways.
We're 5 now.
Okay, 5, yeah.
So, added one.
Okay, beautiful. So yeah, everyone that has such a specific role, it's tough because like you need to kind of all be on the same page when it comes to everything, like the brand itself, first of all, which is tough because you could change and evolve, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you all need to evolve together, which could be definitely difficult. But also like the work ethic, like, you need to, there's a lot of depending on other people.
Yeah.
You said it yourself, you could do it solo, technically.
You could, yeah.
There's pros and cons because by doing it, in the music game too, for me, I love the fact that like, I do everything myself because I don't have to depend on anyone, right? So like sound engineering, like I mix my own vocals. We have in-house productions with these guys, like cover arts I can do myself, like everything I do myself. So I don't need to like waste my time waiting on other people. Oh, guess what? Maybe he's going to delay the mix and then I have to delay everything. Like those back and forths, obviously it's a money thing too. Like I don't have the funds to outsource these crazy amounts of things. And the skills that I acquire, they're so valuable because then when I do have the chance to outsource, I know what value you're actually bringing because I've done your work. You see what I'm saying? So I know if you're actually delivering what you're supposed to and all that. But that's the thing that kind of scares me. Like if we go in the merch direction, which I'm super down, first of all, but it's just like the commitment of like my plate's so full already. Like there's not much more time I could make for that.
Yeah.
But I'm super down. So it's like, unless these guys were down to like, fully commit to that, which I wouldn't be mad about, by the way. But I'm
like,
kidding.
Just on the side,
just
like,
planting a seed.
care.
No.
Yeah. You like us.
Yeah.
I have a dad cap idea. Of course.
Yeah. So see, yeah,
no
like
way, bro.
I would have never guessed.
No. But honestly, the best person to create a product is somebody who wears it constantly. There's nobody here that knows more about that caps than you, I promise.
Yeah,
So
that's facts.
No, not in a bad way. I'm saying it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I want a tattoo from a guy who has tattoos.
Facts. Yo, it's so
clean skinned,
true.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get
It's
it
like
from
they
you.
say like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's like they say like don't go to the bar if the bartender like
Doesn't
doesn't
drink.
drink alcohol. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is. But the design, I'm not even worried about because that's where we would have so much fun, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we all have,
We're all like
That-
pretty creative.
yeah, and I feel like we all have a very similar, like we all just wear like sports gear or like what's it called, like streetwear. You know what I mean? Like, so that I feel like would be the easy part, and I think we'd agree on that for the most part. It's more all the rest, like the production side that scares me, like handling all the stuff behind the scenes, like even like running a store, like online store. Like, that's a lot of stuff
work,
people
yeah.
don't know. Like you need your website, you need like your, manufacturers for production. Like you need a million things, and that's what kind of scares me. It's because like again, if I do something, I do it well. And studying this industry, I'm like, yo, there's like so much that goes behind
Yeah.
this,
And
right?
I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, especially like delving into like a new like industry.
Yeah.
It's so scary. But I think we also are kind of in a time right now where everyone is like, I need to get it right on the first try. Like, it has to be perfect from the get go, you know? And I don't
killed that. Yeah.
I don't think that that's a mentality that you should bring into it. I feel like there is so much to gain from trial and error, from testing multiple manufacturers like we've done, trust me. You know, like exploring any other ideas, you know? Like I didn't even think about maybe like embroidering the dad cap. I was just thinking of putting like a graphic on it, you know? Like there's nothing to lose by trying something and failing. And I think that's something that like as a society we need to regain that value within ourselves.
That's right,
because
yeah.
it's like sad to see how many people hold themselves back because they don't believe that they'll get it right if they do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question related to that kind of, and this is maybe like somewhat loaded, but like what's like for most people the hardest thing is probably the first step is like just starting, right? You guys have experience with that.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine how to start like a clothing brand out of nowhere. I wouldn't even know what would be the first step.
Us with
What
the
would be the most
podcast,
important
honestly.
thing?
Yeah. First
But
step.
like, yeah, it's just you guys have experience with it. What's like a very important piece of advice for like someone who's just starting or has the
Yeah.
ideas in their head, you know, and wants to put it out, but just doesn't know what direction to go with it.
Amazing question. Like hypothetically, if you were giving us advice, like let's say we're like, yo, we're starting this now. Like,
Yeah.
how would you tell us like what the hell do we do now?
What the hell do you do now?
Yeah.
There's
That's
two
what you
different
meant
ways to
basically,
look
right?
at it.
Like pretty much like when you have the idea in your head and you're inspired, but
Yeah.
you just don't know how to put it out.
Perfect.
I'd say there's two different ways to look at that question. One, are we working in a team or are we working solo dolo? And the reality is that they're actually kind of the same question because a team is just a bunch of solo people
Individuals.
together,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
So
yeah.
one of the aspects is going to be the mental aspect. If you're afraid of failure, if you're afraid of it going wrong, of losing money and so on and so forth, and I'm not talking about like cautious, as in you know there's a potential for you to lose money, but you do your due diligence, right? You should go into every situation informed. But if even with that due diligence, you still feel too afraid to do it, I would say it's probably not the business for you. I would not to say give up, but it's a situation where if the idea of going into something that is unknown is too much to overcome, then you might just not be at the space to do it. The other aspect of it is how do you actually feasibly go, like what's step number 1, 2, 3, if you've already committed to the idea and everything that goes into it. First, get informed. Everything you need to know is on the internet. Nobody can tell you more than it's on the internet.
Google is free.
Google is free.
YouTube is
and
fire. I mean, I was literally sending them YouTube links like, boys, watch this to prep for today's interview,
Yeah.
you know?
100%. And it's like the way that I approached it was, I say this all the time, but I'm the most and least talented person on the team. In the sense of not talented, when you hold a piece of clothing, did I come up with the design? No. Did I come up with like the material that we're going to use? Hell no. Like, am I marketing it online? Psych. Like, that's not me. That's not me in any way. But what I am able to do is I'm very, very good at operationalizing. So taking a big problem and cutting it down into chunks that are very, very small, and then providing everybody with the resources necessary for them to be able to achieve that. So if you're looking at it from a team standpoint and even from yourself, it's taking a huge problem and breaking it down. Before you get to like, what manufacturer am I going to use? How are we going to promote this online? Work on your design and work on your design and what are you really trying to say? Once you have that standpoint, right? Now inform yourself on what is the next step. Okay, so let's look at what is out there currently and why is this different? What can I learn from people that are out there? What pieces do I have in my closet that I really like? And what exactly do I like about them? So that goes into like learning tailoring, basic 101. Do you like the cut? Is it that you like a boxy crop fit? Do you want something that's more elongated? How do you like the seams? Where do you want the shoulder seam to be? Do you want it on the shoulder line, off the shoulder line? These small things, but it makes a difference between the shirt that you love
This is crazy.
and the shirt that you hate,
Yeah.
right? Go into stores and start touching everything. What
Pause.
No, the clothing, dog, you know? But what material do you like? And once you know yourself as a consumer, then you can start saying, okay, well, let me control these variables to make something that I would perfectly like.
This is
Right?
so dope. Yeah.
Or even go into it and think of like, let's say I don't have the fashion sense of, I don't know, let's take an e-boy. Like I don't dress like an e-boy. I'm wearing a skirt right now, you know? Like I wear white. But I really want to sell to them. What is it that they like? Where do they go? You know, what do they do on the weekend? And going into those spaces in the stores that they frequent and all those types of things, you start touching things and you realize like, the stuff that they're touching is like 80% cotton, 20% polyester. The stuff that hockey players like let's just take you guys as an example. You're talking about it before, athletic wear, right? Yeah. What is athletic wear? Like what material is that? What's the difference between this and streetwear? And where do they meet in the middle and the products that you guys like the most? And once you get informed about all of those things, and it goes, okay, well, this product was made in China. This product was made in Pakistan. Let me do some research into manufacturers. You have a brand that you like here that makes kind of stuff that you like. Be obnoxious. Ask the guy who owns it. You'll find him on Instagram. It takes 30 seconds of a little bit of espionage, you know? And ask, who's your manufacturer? Where do you go? If somebody's a douche, they're not going to tell you. You try on the next account and they'll tell you. You'll get to it. Like Montreal's a very open society, you know? And it's step by step by step. Before you even put $1 in, you should know everything that goes into it. Yeah. And then you kind of realize that it's a chain of movements. It's not 5 big steps that are all separate and 5 different things you have to tackle. It's step 1, 2, 3. Once you have that listed off, then it's just a matter of, you know, being consistent with it until you get the product that you like. Yeah. It doesn't even have to cost a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like for us, our first like screen printing setup was a type of thing where it was like in my homie's basement, he had a budget of $50 with some wood, watch videos online on YouTube on how to do it, got it together, you know, looked like a hot mess after, but we were selling those products the next day at a pop-up. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if he wants to invest, or if we want to invest in like really industrial level material or industrial level machinery, like he knows how to make one that costs $50. So he knows exactly what he's looking for. So if you're looking at that industrial level, of course, it's going to be way too big for like one person or a team of 4 or 5 or whatever to capture. But when you're looking at it as just make one piece and okay, we made one, and how do we make that 100? How do we facilitate that? It becomes easier. It's step by step, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's also like really important to like know yourself and know like what your capabilities are, right? Like I know that marketing is the easiest thing for me to do. Like it comes to me almost naturally. And that like is, for example, when Cho has questions about like designs or stuff, I can always give him advice on what I think, because I do have like a passion for graphic design as well. Like it's something I'm interested in, and I'm very good, I think, at seeing things from a consumer side. So he's handling the actual artwork because I can't do that. But at the same time, I'm giving him that support where he needs it to fill in those little gaps where he's like, I don't know if this is the right shape to do for this, or if this is the right line to put here. And I think that's something that like you did really well, is that she filled in all of those gaps that she had with the right people. So we're all able to support each other on different levels. Miriam and Yusuf work really closely together on the production side because they are the 2 most knowledgeable about it. And then, for example, Daniel will come in as like a third support when necessary, just because we are also wanting to learn about it within like our individual selves, so we can help each other at the end of the day, like no matter what.
I think that's a big difference. Like even what you were saying before about like how you like to do everything from beginning to end, that way you're in control of the process and you actually know what you're outsourcing to and what the quality is, right? For us, I think what was really important is, and it's why like not even having our production guy here, we can talk about production. Everybody knows a little bit of everything,
which I think is so important.
It's just that we respect the specialization of the other person. So for example, like you were saying, it's big steps, right? It's a big thing to do to start a clothing brand, but we have it spaced out step by step. I, as CEO owner, let's say I put a budget forth, right? Production, I'm going to ask, is this possible with this budget to achieve this amount? Production's going to find the limitations of that. We sauce that off to design. Design now has the parameters in which they have to work. Right. And even when design is coming up with their design, they're also limited by, is this something that in the process is going to be marketable? And then we have a film and, you know, a photography guy, shout out to Idias, like he comes in and he has to create an art style in communicating that narrative, right? Like the video, the everything that goes behind it, that is not only marketable, but is authentic to the process. So there's a lot of subgroups and everything works like clockwork. So everybody's working at the same time, but without that amount of trust, and trust is not something that we just give absently. Like the fact that, you know, you're in the company means that we trust you. It's the fact that we've been at it for 3 years and you've consistently been able to do this. So we're able to trust in your work process because it's vetted, it's proven, right? So it works smoothly now. But at the beginning, it's definitely like clinks to work in communication.
Yeah. Now it's got me thinking, like, if we actually started clothing, I'm excited. But because if you apply it to say us, okay, I'll be selfish for a minute. Sorry for the viewers, but us, I think we're coming in with that benefit of already having a foundation of our brand. We, first of all, I understand social media. I'm like, I get it. Like, I know how to work that. And we're coming in with that, you were talking before, like before even going into it, like have a dope, idea, we already have that.
Yeah.
We already have like Never Stop Laughing is the slogan. It's the brand. We know exactly who our audience, well, to a certain extent, we know who our audience is. We know who'd be targeting. Like, so we're coming in like a few steps ahead, right? Because we already have that following, this and that. So in our situation, I'm curious what you would say our first step would be, right? Like what, because now I'm looking at it and it gets very intimidating to your point before, like you get in there and you're like, whoa, there's so many things that like I didn't know existed in this universe, right?
Yeah.
So like me diving into a bit, it becomes like scary. I'm like, I have way too much music work to do to worry about this, right? So let's say, yeah. So it's like I get into it and then it's like, okay, so let's say right now we're going to start making t-shirts. Yeah. But like, again, the whole manufacturer thing, which apparently no one wants to give out their manufacturer thing. It's like a big thing online. People sell their list and stuff. Like manufacturers seem to be
Americans. I'm sorry. I'm going to just say straight up. Americans are a lot more protective of this stuff than
because
Canadians.
every YouTuber I watch that has their brand, they're like, yeah, I'm selling my manufacturer list because I know like, it's like super hard to find.
Yeah. It's very capitalistic, which I'm not against. Like everybody make your money the way that you have to, but it also goes into your brand identity, right? Like I'm going to be thinking of your brand in a more selfish way because you're acting in a more selfish way. If that's what I want to communicate by wearing it, that's perfectly fine. Like everybody's entitled to do their thing. I would just say probably in Montreal, that's a little bit less prominent.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
For you guys, first step, I think the thing that helps us the most as the in the brand is that we have very clear guiding principles that are like written in stone. What I mean by that is the limitations of somebody's job are so clearly known that the second that I'm going into somebody else's like territory, there's a mutual respect there that occurs. Right. So when I started the brand, the first thing that was okay, so I'm CEO. What exactly do I need? From the basis, I need somebody who designs the clothes. I need somebody who makes the clothes. I need somebody who communicates the clothes. Boom, you do this, you do this, you do this, right? And an understanding between everybody, this is what each person does. If you have to make a decision that dives into somebody else's territory, that has to be mutual collaboration and it has to be done with respect, right? Everybody's equal, but think of it like a basketball team. Captain is not more important than any of the other players, but like if you're going into somebody else's space,
they'll have their roles. Yeah.
There's rules and there's respect that has to be had there. Another thing that makes it really, really clear is that you have to have a default person on who the veto goes to. Because the reality is 5 different people, everybody's going to disagree. There's going to be a point where all 5 of you have completely altering opinions, right? You have to understand who gets the final call, how those conversations have to be had. And once that's established, right, those things have to be respected consistently. Because it's easy to say, like, this person has a veto or this person is in charge of this project. And then when you're doing something creative, I'm sure you guys have felt that before, there's a little bit of ownership over the creativity. When somebody rejects an idea, it almost feels like they're rejecting your intelligence or something. You know what I mean? Like, you think my idea is shit, so I'm shit. Are you saying, like, I'm a crappy musician, you know, or like a crappy artist? And you have to be willing to take that type of... like, I wouldn't even say conflict, but diverting interest, we'll call it like that, right? And I would say, like, if you guys want to start today, once you have that, like, kind of network and everybody's agreed on it, it's like in bold on the wall how it works. Every person there has to consistently, with updates, it's scheduling at that point, and that should go to the person who's in charge. You have to have consistent progress on what you're doing. Every person there for the first, like, 4 months, don't even talk about making a product. Don't talk about it. You're studying. You're in school. Like, this is things that people go and have careers over. You know what I mean? Before somebody should come to her talking about fashion marketing, they should feel free to have that conversation with her and bring in ideas, right? But before you have I don't want to call it the audacity to say that your idea is better, understand, like, she went to school for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're fighting textbooks and education and we have to have mutual respect for that. When I come with the budget and Yusuf comes to me with production limitations, I have to have full respect for what he's saying. I know a little bit about production, but for everything I know, he knows 10. And we have to have that mutual respect of when we're speaking. So I'd say it's assign, create hierarchy, not in like a condescending way, but to clarify and to operationalize. And then invest a time limit of, like, let's say 4 months, you're going to go into deep diving and learning everything about that. And have meetings like weekly or bi-weekly. What's the update? What did you learn? Explain it to everybody so that we're also learning with you. You know what I mean? Become each other's tutors, lean on each other in that way. So in the team in 4 months is going to be a completely different team. And you're also going to learn, like, how maybe in a music space, like, a lot of people that are on the team, almost everyone I went to school with.
Yeah.
So I've worked on group projects
It's
with them
amazing.
before. I've had to collaborate with them. But working in a clothing brand is very different than working with them on a different project
Mhm.
because people feel ownership, ease, skill, a weakness, a little more insecurity in completely different places, especially because everybody's going into something new, right? So being accommodating of that, having clarity as to the structure, dedicating the time to learning, and then coming together, and the fact that you set that time limit of like, let's say 4 months to learn, you're also going to respect the fact that the other person consistently put in that 4 months. So I'd say it's operationalization, clarity, and an investment in learning. That's where I'd start.
That's amazing. Your answers are fabulous, both of you.
No
honestly.
worries, no worries.
At one point, like in one way, it gets me super excited, and the way it gets me super intimidated. You know what I mean? Like I'm super down, but then I'm like, fuck, weekly meetings, we're fucked. we can barely do monthly pods. boys.
And there's a learning curve. There's also that, right?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
you have
for
to
sure,
have-
for sure.
You have to have, how do I say it? Like grace and mercy with everybody to an extent. There's going to be a learning curve from everyone. And that includes the person who is kind of guiding you as to what to do or telling you what to do in that moment. I started off, it was 2 meetings per week. Each one was 2 hours. Now we have
crazy.
1 meeting per week and it's like 30 minutes. If an extra like 10, 15, it's because like something huge is happening and we're talking big plans and
Yeah.
projects,
Or being silly.
Or we're doing, yeah, facts. And everybody in the group, like I said, we have those like pieces of clockwork that work really closely together. Photographer, videographer works really closely with her. I work really closely with production. Production works really closely with design. It all kind of goes back and forth. We all have our own scheduled calls too. You know what I mean? Like I'm not in the style of micromanaging, and I don't think anybody else on the team is. But that level of like speed and fluidity and how we communicate was
Yeah.
not there at the beginning.
Yeah.
You
I have a
know?
question a bit on that because it's kind of off topic, but also super relevant. Like, I'm sure you guys have heard, people say like never mix friends and family and business.
I agree
Right?
so much. Yeah.
But you were saying though that like everyone that you, when you started this, you kind of looked in your personal like network, right? So I would assume you seem to be friends, you two. So it's
We've known
obviously
each other since we were 6.
there you go.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So-
I was 5.
Okay.
She's 5.
I was 5.5. No, but you know what I mean? Like we hear that a lot, right? And what is your take on that? Because if you've structured your business, we're friends, right? And that would scare me a bit in that way. Like already we're lucky that we established, again, you're talking about all the roles and stuff. On the music side, we go through that too. It's obviously very different because there's more money involved and stuff in regards to if we do the clothing brand thing. But at least there's already that foundation. But yeah, we were friends before we were partners in this music thing, right?
Yeah.
So I would like your take on that. If you would, yes or no, if it's would you
Looking at me
recommend
like,
it basically?
Would I do it again the same way? My answer is I would do it exactly the same way. Like you said, I went into my personal network. 2 people I had gone to high school with, straight out of high school when I was 18. I approached them and was like, hey, you want to do this? You know what I mean? Like when COVID started is when we started
Okay.
workshopping the idea of the business and getting into it, Her I've known since I was in kindergarten. The guy that we just added, we didn't go to school with each other, but he's been consistently like a part of our life. I knew him personally. Then he came in from a business perspective, Like I said at the beginning, those like 3 kind of values, the most important thing to me, the moral aspect, which was the first one, was I chose people who, one, aren't very argumentative, but who have a backbone. So not people who are scared to say their opinion, but people who aren't searching for aggression or who communicate their dislike or their difference of opinion in a way that's receivable by everyone. So one thing that works is that we all have a space where we understand each other and we approach conflict in a very similar way. So it works seamlessly, right? But for me, the most important thing was like, I have to choose friends where, please nobody take offense to this, but that are distant enough from me where if something were to happen, it wouldn't be bad, but who have a personality and like a character that I can trust enough that we can lean back on like loyalty and foundational morals and value to that relationship, right? Like one thing that works for everybody in the group is that we're the types of people where we don't want to hang out all the time.
Yeah.
Like they're not in my face all the time. You know what I
Your
mean?
2 weekly meetings is enough.
Literally, if you think about like in a year, we speak every week. Some of us like we speak every single day online from a friendship standpoint or from a business standpoint. Yeah. But like, how often do we see each other in person? Lackluster. Because we have our own lives and we have our own space and we respect that, right?
It's very similar with me and them 3. Them 3, they're like best friends, like they're always together.
Yeah.
But me, I'm more of an outsider, not in a way that not
That
not
was
an
such
outsider.
An
It's
honest
just like
laugh. He's like, yeah, you are.
no. But I just mean like
We're always excluding you from us.
He's like, what's the last time we had brunch yesterday, broski?
no. But I just mean in the sense that like you guys know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
your friend group, you guys are like it's your friend group, and then
Yeah.
I'm there because of hockey and music, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like,
There's a purpose to your friendship.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But we're for sure friends. There's no
course,
way,
of
you know.
course.
But like them three, it's like you guys are tight for sure.
Because the thing is, like, one thing that I think for our group is very apparent is the distance is such a respect thing, and also it allows us to be more honest with each other and just more real with each other. Like, we're all the type of people where like see you in 6 months.
Yeah.
So the online fact that we're able to communicate and all of that, it's like it's so niche into our personalities.
Yeah.
So I would say it's a bad. Like, for example, I would never work with my family, like my brother and so on and so forth. I wouldn't start a business with my brother because my brother and I's relationship is so close, and we're so like that's my best friend in the whole wide world. Like, I love him more than anybody. But because of that, the stress of one situation is going to seep into other aspects of our
For
relationship.
sure, man.
But the fact that we aren't in each other's face all the time allows us to like think and process how we're feeling before we approach it, and it doesn't allow for like one experience to leak into the other. So I would say it's not bad to work with friends and family, but definitely know who you're working with and be so honest about it too. Like, people say that they can do something, but they can't. It's like when you start going to the gym, you know what I mean? You'll say you'll go every day. Like, that's a recipe to fail. You're going to get tired of it.
You
You're going to
see it
exhaust
the first week of January. You see that gym is
like
full.
the New Year.
super set. Like,
Everyone's resolution, man.
you know what I mean? Then you're sore and you don't feel like going. So work realistically within who you are and what your limitations are, and be kind to each other. But choose to work with people who like you get a little bit of space from. You know what I mean? If it's like, I don't know how people work with like their like significant other. That would drive me insane.
Yo, yeah.
You know what I mean? You get into like an argument over business, and then you're supposed to have like dinner and go watch a movie. Like, I'm still pissed.
Yeah, it's
you know,
tough to
so-
separate. Yeah, for sure.
Have a little bit of space between you guys.
Yeah.
One conversation we constantly have at the beginning is just respecting the fact that the people are leaning on you and the fact that you're being leaned on. So like, beyond looking at them as a friend, like when I'm talking to them in a business space, I'm not really thinking of them as my friends, right? And it's understanding that separation in the relationships. But I'm respecting as a leader, I respect the fact, and I feel that pressure, and I accept and I really invite that pressure of all of you. I care about you as individuals, and you're investing time and you know, your efforts into something that I asked you to do. So decisions that I make with that idea of care having an importance to me, right? Because it's affecting people that I care about, but also allowing myself like the space as a more intellectual and as a business person to make mistakes and to get better in the long term. But with them as well, it's like, I care about Katrina as a person, and I care about her doing well and so on and so forth. So I'm not coming at her as like an aggressive boss or something like that. Like, I don't even feel like, I hate it when you guys call me boss or something like that. Like, they do that as a joke. They're like, oh, look, boss girls, whatever. But I don't feel that way in any way, shape, or form because I care about them. But at the same time, like, because I care about them, the importance behind decision making, like, I have to make it in a business space. And I respect the fact that they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, when I call Yusuf, I know that he's putting a lot of effort into what he's doing. I respect that, and I care about him. And same thing with Daniel and so on and so forth. So there's a flexibility there, but it's also not an allowance of a suboptimal production level, right? Because we also respect the efforts that everybody else is doing, and we're motivated by that.
Yeah.
Like any business where you're collaborating
Exactly.
with people, it's a mixture of like giving them the space to make mistakes, having a sense of accountability when you do, and being committed to the growth. It's you and the person versus the problem, even if the problem is your own behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes it's a bit more difficult to separate it, but I think that we have the right personality mix within the group to be able to do that efficiently.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you wouldn't be where you are now if those things weren't, you know
Oh
what
yeah,
I mean?
we would have sunk.
Yeah, that's what I'm
We would've
saying.
sunk, for
Like, I
sure.
don't think you would have made it this far. So it's amazing. So that's great.
Thank you.
I kind of want to switch it a bit production side for a bit, because I know a lot of guys, or people I should say, that are watching this and that are looking into this. It, again, the intimidation factor, like when I'm looking into it, this is a specific question. It's just something that seems to come up a lot. So I would like your opinions and what you've tried and what you're doing. When you look into this, you always see like the different options of production, meaning like print on demand's becoming popular,
Okay.
or you could do, you know, the pre-sales, or what is it, pre-made.
Like made to order.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So like those different avenues where either you have all your stock ready before and then you sell, but then the risk there is that, like, you know,
You have dead
you
stock.
there's such a you have dead stock, and you have such a big first investment, right? Because no one bought that, so it's a bigger risk there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the downside of that is that you plateau, because let's say you make 100 t-shirts, but you could have you could have sold more, so you're also restricting that possibility. But then the flip side is like you could have product that's sold out, et cetera, et cetera. So I would love to get your opinions on like how you guys roll with that, and if you think, if you've tried multiple in the past, and like why you went the avenue you went.
We've tried so many different ways. We've tried so many different ways. We've worked with people in the city who like screen printing is their thing and getting orders from them. There's something called an MOQ, so that's a minimum order quantity.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to be explaining the terminology as I use
Please
it.
do,
It's a more
because
technical
this is,
aspect.
even for me, it's new. So
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple things that you have to pay attention into what you're doing. One, it's MOQ, minimum order quantity, right? There's their PPU, that's your price per unit. And looking into conversion rates. So that's between different companies that you're looking to if you're outsourcing. Snack time.
ladies and yo, I heard the plastic whistle too.
I was like,
That's
bear
amazing.
paw.
I think we have a new co-host. Eh? It's perfect. She's funny.
No, I love that. I love that. And I saw him just look up like, please don't look at me.
I just didn't want to pick up too much when you guys were having a convo.
That's so good. It's so good.
Enjoy the bear paw.
You know. So yeah, MOQ, PPU, looking at conversion rates between how much, like what your currency is worth versus how much it's worth overseas. Also taking into account shipping, so on and so forth. Sounds like a lot. It's
I
really-
never would have thought of that though. That's super interesting.
Super
the
important.
Whole, like, conversion.
Because you might be thinking you're paying like $100 for this, and then you do the conversion, and then in your taxes, and then it's like when it's coming in your imports, and suddenly it's $350, and you're like, why didn't I go with the guy down the street? I would have had it yesterday. It's the same price, right? So PPU, people often forget with the price per unit to factor in all the other factors that are specific to whatever region you're in, right? After learning all of that, it's about kind of doing a valuation table. So what's the positives and what's the negatives in terms of the net output of what you're capable of doing with the limitations of your capacity, right? If I know that I just started the brand, one mistake that we made, I don't regret it because it helped us learn. And I'm the type of person where maybe that's a little hard-headed of me, but until I had tried it, I wouldn't have thought it wouldn't have worked, right? In theory, it sounded great. In practice, it was not. Like, we went to work with somebody who was an absolutely fantastic worker in Montreal who does great work, very talented, super high quality, but their MOQ was not something that we could have supported within our first job.
Because it's too big.
Too big.
Okay.
We had so much debt stock.
'Kay.
So we were working longer with items where our plan was to be more creative and put out little bursts. And we thought little bursts was like, 30 t-shirts, 30 hoodies, no. And that was dead stock for months. Also, remember, we started this in like COVID. So where are you going to be selling it? Like, you put it online. Do you think people care enough about it to go
that's
purchase?
tough. That's
you know,
tough.
that's a big investment. That's close to $1,500 off the get-go,
Yeah.
right? And then looking to make a profit off of that is difficult. To even break even is difficult.
Yep.
Another expectation I would say to keep in mind is that with a clothing brand for the first 4 years, you're not expected to make profit. That's something that people really don't understand. Most clothing brands, and when I'm talking about most clothing brands, over 80% of them flunk in the first year. Then if we're talking about the ones that survive into the second year, over 60% of them flunk in the second year. To get to third or fourth, I love this so much.
He's trying to be so quiet.
He's like,
You're not even enjoying the bear paw, bro. At least enjoy it. Well, you look all stressed, you know? You roll your shoulders back, you're good.
The man opened the bag, put it in
I
his hand.
actually appreciate it, though. Thank you for trying to be quiet.
Crunchy.
That's hilarious.
You know, but it's understanding that what exactly are you going into? And most brands that I'm referring to those numbers there have a $25,000 starting point. So
Like the initial cost?
their initial investment is
Damn, boys.
$25,000 to start their
Better start
company.
saving
Right?
up, eh?
One thing that I did that made
Gotta
my
stop drinking
expectation.
beer like Jimmy.
One thing that I did that I think opened my eyes to the financial aspect of it was that I proposed the company structure to an accountant before I got started.
Dope.
So I asked them,
smart.
what's the regular numbers? What should I be expecting? So on and so forth. We're fortunate enough that in 2 years, we covered the distance that most people do in 4. But that was from informed business decisions that we made based on the expectations that we had already that were realistic, right? But after okay, realistically, in the first year, I'm supposed to mix X amount.
Yeah.
Most people print this amount. They go into deficit by this amount. It helps you to make an informed decision of you shouldn't print that much, right? Like if I went back to the first drop that we had in the middle of COVID, there's no events that you're going to. It's just the followers that you had. I probably would have done like printing like 5 shirts and then coming out with new creative things consistently because the turnaround would be quick. And then you could release 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces that are creative and interesting, right? And based on the way that they're received by the public, then you fund that into creating more stock, right? Rather than having like the same amount of each, that's a high volume of each, to then wait on when the return is going to come over dead stock.
Yeah, I see.
Right? But for example, like how we approach it now, 3 years later, it's a completely different conversation. The conversation is always like the number of events that we're doing, the amount of online traffic that we have. Now we're worried not about having dead stock, but more so about being sold out, which happens.
Good problem to have. Let's fucking
Yeah,
go.
good problem to have. Good problem to have. That's a different question. So I'd say at the beginning, the most important thing and the thing that really allowed us to like catch up was the fact that Yusuf, our production guy, was committed to learning how to do everything himself. He was like, what is it exactly that they're doing? Okay, like for example, screen printing is something where you put a screen on top of a shirt, you use ink, a certain type of ink, and then you print it, you put it through the stencil so that the design that you want is there. If you go with really talented people who have a full industrial set, they can do like 7 layers for you. 7 layers means like 7 different colors. Think like graffiti.
Yep.
Stencil on top of stencil on top of stencil. When you're doing it by yourself, to line up 7 layers consistently over pieces when you have like this like weird square thing that you made out of wood from Rena Depot, you know what I mean? How many t-shirts are you going to waste on that? So also understanding the limitation of what he can do, working from 1 screen to getting better, then 2, then 3, and so on and so forth, that takes over a year. And being willing from the business perspective of everybody else to invest in that time. But from a smaller scale, I would really say like learn how to do it yourself. It's completely doable, and work within the parameters that are the limitation of your production. Once you get money from that, invest it in improving your production. So don't start with a big idea and then say, how can I make this? Start with, from the creative aspect, I'd say it's important to like stretch your creativity, you know, come up with the drawings, come up with the sketches, do your thing. But also understand that like from the production standpoint, maybe your guy on the team can only do 1/8 of what you want, and focus the creative aspect of working within those limitations, coming up with something cool, right? When that gets better, invest the money that you make in profit into better production and increase. But it's steady, it's slow. It's exactly like going to the gym. Like
It's
it is not
stepping
going to
stones,
be,
yeah.
your personal best is not going to be better like tomorrow by double. It's little bit, 5 pounds at a time, and having patience with the person who's doing that and understanding the effort that they're going into. But yeah, if you're starting off smaller and you don't have an account, or for you guys, it's a little bit different because you do have NSL and as a brand, but I would say have fun with having things that are sold out rather than having the worry and the stress of having dead stuff.
I think the other blessing that comes with NSL is that even though it's music and it's so different, it's very similar from a business standpoint, that like we understand that, like, again, like we were saying before, the conversion, you know, people think online that until you do it, you understand. Like, I don't think we would run into that problem where we would overshoot and be like, yo, we're going to sell 1 million t-shirts, because we understand that. Yeah. You know, so we're blessed to have that because we've seen it with our music as well. But I can see how, people overshoot and they expect like. Yeah,
you get people like I was saying this the other day at a team meeting. It was interesting, not to be competitive or wish for the downfall of anybody else. Like we do us regardless of what's happening. I mean, the fact that 3 years later we were thinking about this is kind of funny. When we started, like, I think well over like 30 clothing brands I knew of started at like the same time in Montreal. And we look back at people that we were going to events with consistently, or like that we were in talks with consistently, whatever. And it's like, oh, they stopped doing this 2 years ago, or they stopped doing this a year ago. And it's always an issue of money. And it's always an issue of not having proper budgeting and investing too much in a product, and then that turnaround just not being there, because some people spend $10,000, $15,000 on a business and then it flops. Yeah. Right. Which for most people who build businesses, if anybody's gone into like research into developing multiple streams of income, you know that your first 3 businesses are most likely to fail. Usually people hit it on their 4th one, right? So if you're looking at this at a super long-term individualistically, it's also being committed to getting those 3 L's to get the 4th dub, right? But it's also understanding that like you're going into something where every dollar counts, and you have to be very, very explicit about how you use that and very careful. And at the same time, not be so fearful that you don't put anything out. Yep. So it's a little bit of a tight wire to walk, but if you have enough confidence in the people around you and in the product that you're creating, then it'll come in time. It just might not be the time that you want it to.
Okay, dope. And still, like, I don't know if you guys want to talk about this, but like for you now, like, what's your production like now, like in terms of like, like all the things you just explained. I don't know if this is something that you don't
no,
talk about, but like
transparent.
Yeah,
like if somebody
you're
hit us
down-
in a DM today, we would tell them.
okay, dope. I just don't know where I could like how deep I could go, but
No.
like how do you run it today? I would love to know.
I feel like right now it's kind of a mix
Mhm.
of like I'd say like we do work with manufacturers and we do request a
Absolutely, yeah.
certain amount. And then we're also trying to work more on some pieces that feel a little bit more exclusive at the
Oh,
same
dope.
time.
Okay, I see what you're
Especially
saying.
because we do a lot of pop-ups and stuff. We want the people who come and support us through there to also feel like they got something
Like
out of it.
customized almost,
Yeah.
right?
Almost,
Like exclusive,
yeah.
like you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
really smart from a business standpoint, actually.
Yeah.
That's very
definitely.
smart.
I'm trying not to give too much information because it's still in the works.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
That's
But
fine. That's
yeah,
fine.
there's like, actually, for example, the skateboard that we did a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one was made to order by Yusuf because it was so time consuming to do.
Custom hand painted skateboard, the entire process. Like he had to learn from 0 to 100 on how to do that. It was just an idea that he had, and he committed like. That took like months for him to learn how to do it and then to actually have it. You know what I mean?
But it turned out amazing, and like the people who got one, like they love them.
Yeah.
But that's something that we try to kind of walk the wire with that. Like think more from a consumer perspective. Okay, like what is the value of making this like so exclusive that people will like fiend to get it a little bit?
Yeah. I think from a manufacturing standpoint, like talking about that process is, I think we apply a lot of value to individualism now that we didn't as much before, but in the process being very personal, as in we have like a personal workshop where everything gets made by hand and we work it out all out there. We have the funds, the budget now with the business being kind of, able to invest in itself, to be able to play around with demos and working on things and throwing things out and so on and so forth. And then taking that personal level and extending that to a manufacturer. Right. So not working within the limitations of the manufacturer, but working with what we want and what we can personally create with our hands, and then finding the one that is best able to replicate that process. Because the reality is like, can we have 3 of the members on the team are students? You know what I mean? Like, do we have time to be in the basement all day cooking, printing nonstop? We do that for pop-ups, like she was saying, where we have those limited items. And sometimes it's like you're staying up all night and you're just making it happen because the manu who's halfway across the world is not able to have it there the next day.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's a good understanding of different spaces for different demographics, and also being able to understand that different production means allow us to test different price points to get a lot of information before we commit that big budget to a manufacturer.
Yeah.
So we have that space right now where it's more a question of where are we going to sell it and why are we selling it there than if we're going to sell.
Yeah.
So it's grown past that point.
Amazing. So, okay, talk about sales a bit. Obviously, I think so many brands struggle to make that first sale, right?
Yeah.
And you were saying all these numbers with the stats of like whatever it was, like 80% give up after 1 year, 62. What do you think that differentiating factor is? Like, I would assume it's marketing, obviously, but like what would you see, or in your experience, what you've seen, like why do people not make that first sale, and how did you guys kind of break that glass ceiling of like making those sales and now being at a point where you have more leverage, like you're saying?
Glass ceiling, I think, is an interesting term there because
It's definitely not the right
glass.
word.
It's more no. I'm not saying like to correct you, but it's the perspective of it, right? It's like it's not a glass ceiling that's concrete.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
it's not
yeah,
something
that's
that
what
you're
I
gonna
mean.
break
Yeah.
after one shot. You're gonna break after like 10 or 15.
Okay.
And it's commitment to failure. That's just what it is. I think that a lot of brands, the problem is their budgeting doesn't match their capacity, and they invest all their power into that one shot. I think of it like, again, like MMA, boxing type of mentality. When you're just looking for a knockout, you're gonna gas out. Do you know what I mean? So you have to understand that this is a game built on pace. It is not built on like strength and power and explosiveness. It's built on consistency. So you have to budget to consistency.
Okay.
And I think obviously marketing, like you're gonna have so much to say about this, marketing and making that first sale and that conversion. But it's also understanding that like the first sale is not enough because you've probably brought enough to make 100.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a long-term goal and you're just kind of chopping away at the tree until you get down to that point.
Well, that's the important part too. Like actually you're opening like a
Mm-hmm.
new kind of avenue of like, yeah, maybe someone will buy just like music. It's crazy. There's so many intersects, but yeah,
For sure. Business is
people,
business. You know?
exactly. People will maybe go buy your first t-shirt because, oh, it's exciting. It's the first thing. It's like, whatever, I'll support. But how do you have people like coming back like every drop like that? I feel like that's when the branding side becomes so important to have people feel like, again, they're part of that family, so that when you do post up a new drop, damn, like I gotta, freshen up.
Yeah.
But like there's obviously that challenge I'm sure you've ran into as well, right?
I would actually say, like, you kind of like mentioned it briefly, but I think making the second sale is actually harder than the
100%.
first.
So that's what I was getting
100%.
to. Yeah, I had a
'cause
feeling.
the first sale, it's like, it's not that you can count on friends and family to support you, but like if you're speaking about it with them, they already know that things are going on, that you're making those moves. And they'll be like, of course I'll buy that t-shirt from you. It's like in the lemonade stand in the front of your lawn, when you're 5.
Yeah, they're kind of pitying you, but
exactly,
like, yeah.
exactly. Like,
I'll take the pity money. I don't care.
I will.
$100 is $100.
For
fam.
sure. But like they might still like the design. They might still, wear it often. But at the same time, what you're really looking for is something organic. Something that doesn't come from someone that you know.
Yep.
Facts. Same thing for music.
Exactly. And that's why I guess like marketing is so big, because now it's almost basically like entirely based off of word of mouth. When you first start, because I said this before kind of, but those interactions that people are giving, like your stories or your posts, they're going onto other people's feeds. Like that's just how the algorithm works. The more popular you are, the more widespread it becomes. Like obviously once in a while you get a TikTok on your For You page that has 8 likes and you're like, why is this here? It might still be good content.
Yeah.
But like me personally, sometimes
It's
I
not
just scroll
vetted.
away.
It's not legitimate.
Exactly.
It only has 8 likes.
I'm like, how do I know this is content I'll actually enjoy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people don't. I think people should do a little bit more research into economics and just learn about like DMR, like diminishing marginal returns, and have that expectation. What you're chasing is the smallest diminishing marginal return. So on the first product that you make, right? Let's say you put out a shirt, it's $30, right? You pay 10, arguably, and you get that $20 back. You shouldn't be looking at that as I made $20 at all, right? I'm talking about even if you're everything included made into that $10, you should be asking yourself, okay, how much time is going to be between that first sale and the second one? And how much money am I spending in between? Deduct that from the $20. Ask yourself, how much did you actually make? Opportunity cost is a huge thing, and people don't put that into account when you're looking at the product that you're making. So the second sale is the most important because that defines how much money you actually made off of the first one.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about understanding that you're going to have a big jump at the beginning because people are super supportive of like, everybody loves somebody on the come up. Nobody likes anybody who's been there.
Yo, I see it now in our music shit. Like at the beginning, like everyone's like kind of like there because they're curious and like they're down, but then you become bigger. It becomes boring because it's like old news. It's like, okay, yeah, you're popping now. Like technically I'm bigger than ever before, but it's also at the same time, it's like people don't check in as much. You feel me?
At all.
Yeah.
You have to approach the brand for what it is and how people are actually reacting to it in the long term, not how they're initially introduced to it. And I think that talking from a marketing perspective, old school ways of marketing are so underrated.
Facts.
Right
like word of mouth, you said it.
You
Like
know?
word of mouth's like insane.
The thing that made the big difference for us as a company was 100% our investment in real people. So in real people who actually exist in the city, not through like some type of phantom number that's online. We invested the time demanded of that into it. Like, I'm not trying to say that algorithms are important. Social media isn't important. That's the main way in which we market ourselves. I'm never going to, turn a blind eye to that. That has to have priority. However, what is the things that allowed us into the spaces that right now allowed us to sell like $1,500 a night, X amount per night, that funds all of those things?
That's gangster, man.
It's
You
the
drop
fact
it,
that
15,
it's,
gangster.
but I'm saying that that's what it is. It's social media gets you one place, enough to get you legitimacy to be able to present yourself to someone, right? So like if we were to take, like, let's say Baja as an example, it's a music collective and they throw a lot of,
Events and
just
stuff.
for reference
Yeah.
for everybody else, right? Like they throw a lot of house parties, events to connect people. It's networking a lot, what they do. For us to be able to go there and to say like, hey, we would like to participate at this event. We would like to sell at this event. Can we get in? We have to be,
You need social proof.
you need social proof.
Yeah,
And it doesn't
exactly.
actually have to be numbers. It just has to be proof on your account that you've been working consistently. So the fact that when they looked at our stuff, we had been doing it for months, that we had growth, so on and so forth, makes it a little bit more legitimate than some guy
for
down the
sure.
street just being like, yo, I sell t-shirts, you know,
Exactly.
that has 30 followers.
Yeah.
So that social media is that first space of public legitimacy, of social legitimacy, right? But once you get into there, there's 100 people in that room that have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 followers.
Oh,
They don't care. But it's that networking in person that allows me to get into contact with another person who they're having an event. Like literally what happened to us at Bahai was we were at Bahai. We were there for, we were supposed to be doing a different pop-up. It got canceled last minute because of weather. I saw their ad on Facebook for their like house party. I hit them up. I had no clue who they were. And I was just like, hey, can we sell there? And they're like, yeah, cool. Come in. You know what I mean? We got into there. There's another guy who's having an event in like a week where he had another brand that pulled out and said, just met us there and says, listen, like I need somebody there in like 5 days. Do you have the stock? Can you promise? And I didn't even know what we had like in the garage. I had no clue, but I was like, yes, 100%. If I say it, it's happening. Like big puff on chest. But that was like one of our best events. Shout out to, you know, Lolo and El Dorado. Like that's one of the coolest events in Montreal. But now from being able to be there, we were one of the best selling shops at El Dorado. Just from people not knowing who we were, but being in a space where everybody's having fun, they want to buy something, you make X amount of money. And now I'm able to say that we did this event and we did very well. And that leverages into every other event that those people are making and that others are making. You get invited to Bahai for the Chinatown and this, that, and the third. And it ends up racking up like very quickly close to 10,000, you know, $10,000+, where people who only focus on the social media, you made none of that.
Yeah.
You know, because the social media is not significant enough.
So I don't know how deep you know the numbers of like the sales and stuff, but it's probably hard to measure this. But in regards to your sales as a business, right?
Yeah.
Like how much do you think comes from people scrolling through social media versus people that are at your pop-ups physically just coming across you? Do you know that breakdown or not really?
I can tell you for sure the breakdown by season. So
Okay, yeah, I would
I
love
work
to know that.
seasonally because
Okay.
I think it makes a little bit more sense. Like Montreal as a city, anybody who's ever visited, in the winter to the summer is two different places.
Yeah, that's,
In the
that's
summer,
so
it's like
facts.
hot girl summer Miami. Everybody's trying to spend money, lose money, have a good time. And then in the winter, it is
We're
dead.
like, yeah, we just
So,
like, yeah,
you know,
straight
hibernate.
up.
It's cuffing season. Like unless you have somebody, you have nobody for months. You know.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the fallen soldiers right there. But but so we organize our business completely differently when it's hot outside versus when it's cold. So if you're talking about like the winter season, obviously online sales is so much more important than in-person sales. Like where are we selling? Where are you going right now in -20 weather where there's going to be like 400 people who don't want to go home immediately? You know what I mean? To the point where they're actually they're buying a hoodie like they have one on. They're not in the market to be spending money. They're in school, tuition's coming up, holidays are around the corner, this, that, and the third. So we focus very heavily on social media at that time. But the summer is a time where we get to like invest in self-development and having fun with the content because we have this consistent path of like pop-ups that are arriving. So I know like if we're going to one event every week, like I could be making like as a team, we could be making $1,000 to $2,000 per week. So the pressure of having online sales is not as much, right? So I would say if you look at it in a year, it's nearly 50-50.
Okay.
Nearly 50-50. But if you're looking at it by season, it's one completely over the other.
I find that super interesting, this season thing. I would have never thought of it that way.
Well, I mean, even from a
Makes
music
so much
perspective,
sense, though.
you know, like even from a music perspective, we work with artists all the time. Like one of our favorite things is to work with, like we said, underrated artists and people in the city who deserve more shine and collaborating in that way.
I could think of one, actually.
Very-
You didn't get it at first. Yeah.
Who is he?
I saw you were buffering for a second there.
It's almost like, wait a minute.
Tip of my tongue.
You know, yeah, but no, we love collaborating like that, as you guys know. And in the summer, like if you're having shows, selling at somebody's show when they're wearing what you sponsored them with, right? People see them wearing that and they want to buy right away.
Sure, yeah.
So even from a music perspective, it's like, okay, what's happening in the winter? I don't want to say use artists, but like the benefit of artists to me in interaction with my business is actually more from a networking perspective. Because through working with you, you get more outreach like this.
Absolutely.
Get in touch with the right type of people, so on and so forth. All of that to in-person collaborate in the summer. But over the winter, it's like a lot of what can I do for you online versus hard money. But I think that clothing brands, like the main part where they lack or where I've seen them kind of lack is in the investment in the real. Because while you're a clothing brand that might not make the online sales you want for like, let's say 2 years to have the consistent revenue that you're wanting, right? You could have been selling all that dead stock in person yesterday. And even though you can't say like consistently, I can go to this pop up, you're consistently meeting people who are going to have those pop ups and reinvesting in yourself. So it's summer is not a time that we worry about money.
Okay.
Winter is not a time that we worry about money because the summer
You
providing
just
us
focus
to,
in different avenues.
yeah,
and it
exactly.
works,
It's like if you did all your investment in one season, and it's kind of like an off season for us.
Mhm.
If you do all your training that you're supposed to, you're going to perform in the season that you're
Yep.
meant to. So film all the content, have it in the winter. In the winter, work on all the ideas that you put out in the summer.
Super
and
interesting.
cyclically.
I never would have thought of that. It makes so much sense, though. Actually, it's funny because even social media, noticed seasonality is a big factor too.
Huge. Yeah.
Like I live stream every Friday on TikTok, and I hope that I'm right because it's gonna be like exactly 1 year right now. I started every single week.
Mhm.
This summer was so much slower in
Mhm.
regards to like viewership and all these things. Whereas I don't know if it was just because there was less people going live last year. Who knows the demand and everything, but like.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's seasonality because it's crazy this summer how much it's slowed down. I think
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
just less on their phones. Whereas to your point, I think in the winter, like they're more likely going to watch a 3-hour stream.
100%.
Yeah.
No, but think about it. Like, just think about yourself as a consumer or like all of your friends. When are you going to sit down and like watch a 3-hour stream? Is it going to be in the summer when there's so much shit that you could be doing that's
So
fun?
true.
Or is it going to be like when you're lonely in the winter, 2 a.m. in your room? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
It's
a
so
time
true.
where even look at like Netflix or like viewership and streaming. When does it go up and when does it go down?
Mhm.
In the winter seasons, it is so much higher. Like people spend entire winter season is a no for that. Like that's binge season. You don't have the time to binge in the summer as much,
It's
without
true.
it affecting the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, and it's funny that those concepts apply to like all industries, right? You
Mhm.
don't think of that as a consumer, but like it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like entertainment, this,
And
that.
it's also understanding like you can utilize everything as an opportunity, nothing is a loss. I really like hold strong to that mentality, especially in business. An opportunity where, for example, in the summer, okay, people aren't on their phone as much. That's an opportunity for me to focus on capturing all the moments that are going to be interesting to watch. In the winter, I love watching things about people traveling, right?
Okay.
Like summertime fun, all this type of things happening because it lets me kind of live vicariously through them. That's where my viewership of those things. I don't want to watch somebody in the winter when I'm in the winter. It doesn't do anything for me. I can look out my window, but getting all those experiences in the summer to then put out the content and planning that long term allows for better quality in the content,
Yeah.
but also better opportunity. And if people are spending less in the winter, which they tend to do because you have more things that you need to buy, your jackets, your boots, tuition, whatever it may be, maybe that's a time to invest in products that are a little bit cheaper. Maybe that's a time to have smaller drops where you can test out a lot of different types of designs that people are not as committed to, see what pops up, and then reinvest in that with a lot more quality in the summer when you know that the hands are going to be there to actually touch the material,
Yeah.
So it's about leveraging your position and always seeing it as an opportunity.
That's super smart. We can tell like the amount of time you put into like before entering. Like I could
Yeah, most
the way
definitely,
you
most
speak,
definitely.
it's like you really studied this before stepping in, which
you.
is probably why you're doing so well for yourself.
I
So
appreciate that. I'm
Then I-
interested in asking you this
Go ahead.
because you say like editing and you're focused on marketing and all that kind of stuff. And then you were talking before about like from an operationalization standpoint, like you liking to have, how do I say it? You liking to have a personal touch in everything that you do, right? So I'm wondering, do you prefer being like a jack of all trades? Or is it that you feel like within your circumstances right now in your context, you feel more comfortable being a jack of all trades?
I think it's because I kind of had no choice to do it, and one because of money, and
Yeah.
two because I didn't know the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if let's say, like I always say it, like if I had this videographer that to my disposal that would just be there and film and edit for, like I know this sounds cocky, but I know that NSL would actually be like a
No,
significant
for sure.
like
100%.
because
Not
I
cocky at all, yeah.
it's because I just know the potential and like I understand content and all that. It's just realistically like I don't have that person.
Yeah.
So that's the first reason is because I don't have it to my disposal. And second is that like we were talking about before, by me learning all these skills, it's so valuable.
Yeah, to
Like
leverage that.
one day if NSL does, like well enough to that it would make sense to outsource, then I could have so much say in what goes on. It's like at the studio, right? Like since I mix myself, all my vocals and everything, when I go to pro studios, when I get invited or whatever the opportunity presents itself, the sound engineer that's recording me is always like, oh, like you really understand how this works.
Yeah.
Because I'll go behind the computer and I'll be like, like, could you add, reverb to this? Like this isn't EQ'd properly, blah, blah, blah. Like all the nerdy stuff no one understands. But when they see that I understand, again, since I have those skills, I actually don't like mixing my vocals at all, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's something that I had to learn and do like hours of YouTube. so that I had those skills. So it's super valuable now.
Yeah, you need to know what you're talking about and what you're doing.
Exactly. So just like you, how you run everything, you say you're the whatever it was, like the least talented.
Yeah.
But you know everything like from a macro level.
Yeah.
Like a bird's eye view, you understand the whole business, right? And then some people they have more expertise in one specific thing. But I do think it's important for anyone, like you do need to understand all these skills because you're more vulnerable as well if you don't know anything,
100%.
right? Like then you're just
we
left.
can have a 3-hour conversation about vulnerability in business.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
like
100%.
like I'm technically speaking not dependent on anyone. Thank God. These guys provide me beats and other producers as well. So that's my only vulnerability, let's say, is like that. But yeah, like all these guys that depend on, a sound engineer and a producer, and then like on the editing side, the videographer, this, that, it's like, yo, your business is very vulnerable, if one of these guys just walks out the door, you're done, bro, So that's why I think long-term, like it would be amazing to have those roles filled. But for now, it's like actually a huge blessing for me to actually learn it. Yeah.
I see the value in that for sure.
Yeah.
I think even the way that you're outlining it, just from a point of like asset safety. You
Yeah,
know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
Exactly.
It's not a wise decision to go into a business you don't understand.
Exactly.
And when it's something creative, like what better way to understand it than to be able
Exactly.
to
It's
do
like
it.
when you were talking about being like cautious before, it's basically
Yeah,
that,
for sure. Gotta
Yeah.
be cautious.
Do you guys have specific questions? I know I was talking a lot there.
Had his bear paw.
Yeah, it's fair fire. Yeah.
Maxed out for today.
Do you think I know the answer, but I want to get your opinion. The clothing industry as a whole being oversaturated.
Hell yeah.
What's your opinion on that? Because
Boy.
everyone nowadays is selling t-shirts, right?
Everybody's a designer, eh?
So, straight up.
Everybody's
So
Kanye.
pretty much. So in an oversaturated market being the clothing industry,
Yeah.
how do you still have that stubbornness of like, yo, I'll make it happen?
Because I know business. Like that's just what
Okay.
it comes down to. Before I had the clothing brand and we built the team to what Incognito is, like collectively, I had at 14 started a resale business for vintage clothing. So when it came into like just being able to make it ourselves, I already knew what I was looking for. I had multiple years in that. I had like OGs in the game that taught me everything, read the books, went to like their stores, took notes, all that kind of stuff, right? But the reality is like everybody thinks, I don't even know where it comes from. I'm so serious.
It's the ego.
Where does it
We're
come
a very
from?
egotistical society right
But
now.
I'm
That's
saying
facts.
everybody
Yeah.
really thinks like they're that guy.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. At
Yes, it
times.
is.
No,
At
it's
times.
actually a good thing. I understand what you're trying to say, that
Yeah.
like to have that self-confidence and be like, yo, I can do
Oh,
this,
for
right? It's
sure.
like the NSL thing. We wouldn't be here if we were like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
afraid,
No,
what
I
mean?
don't mean-
Sometimes
I don't
you need that best friend who's like, bro, this looks fug.
You know?
No,
Like-
straight up.
No,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what I'm
yeah.
saying is everybody can be that guy. And everybody should have the confidence in believing that you can be him, right? But you're not him right now.
Exactly.
You're not him right now. People really think like if they put a t-shirt out or if they put like they slap some lazy design on a piece on like a Gildan shirt, they put it out and it's gonna sell. And that mentality to me is always, I find that very disrespectful to the consumer. As in, you think that they can't tell when a piece is good quality or not.
That's
That
an
you think
interesting point,
that
actually,
they
yeah.
can't tell when something has effort or not. You know when effort goes into like an audio that you're listening to. For somebody to put out like the crappiest song of all time without the commitment to actually getting better, really genuinely thinking like that's what's going to happen and not checking themselves and doing some type of verification. As somebody who like previously was an athlete and so on and so forth, I find that so disrespectful to the people that you're showing that to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not to say that you should fear failure, but you should understand that like it's not from the lack of your idea in the industry that you're not selling.
Yeah.
It's from the lack of the commitment and the consistency that you apply to making that idea as big as it can be. Right? Nobody should feel like they can't be Kanye, but to think that you are him today is kind of the Lulu. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
That's where the ego thing comes into
Exactly.
play.
Like-
Ego checked along the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you don't have the people around you. And, you know, like, for example, we were at this pop-up shop this summer and there was like this like 16, 17-year-old kid there who was like, who had his brand and so on and so forth. And the guy went to like every table and was just asking questions.
Just to
And
learn.
I was like, bro, you're 17 and
He's
doing
going
this. Like he
places,
had a
though.
full machine. He was doing
Yeah.
live screen printing. And yeah, is there like one or like there's places where his design could be better, or like he asked me to critique some things and I can give him some aid there. But I'm like, he's like, oh, how can I get better? I'm like, you're already better than everyone. You're doing it and you're 17, right?
It's amazing.
And the most important thing is the mentality that you have. It's a matter of the amount that you try. You'll get it eventually. hungry like that, willing to learn, like humble like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And people don't look for OGs in the game the way that they used to. You need people who can teach you, because you're somebody who, the best businessman is somebody who's ready to learn. And you should surround yourself by people who are smarter than you constantly. If you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms, you know?
So much game. It's crazy.
No.
Yeah,
But I'm
you
saying,
spend
like,
a
in
lot of
terms of
game,
it
though.
being like oversaturated, it's oversaturated. I don't feel like, not to say like Incognito is different or whatever, but if we're okay, but if,
Not the ego.
if we're looking at like competitors, right? Like relevant competitors that you can look at. First of all, I think that the more clothing brands build from the ground up, the more it helps other clothing brands that build from the ground up. I'm not one to be like, if we all have different designs. If somebody wants your shirt over mine, it's because it's more in line with them. I'm not hunting people. I'm hunting people that want what I
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
But secondly, it's like I said, those like years that the competition or other people who are participating in it kind of die away. Those people that are in the first year are not competitors if they don't
Exactly.
have the right mentality. It's probably like 10% of them, if not less.
Like
that
not all of them finish the race, right?
you know, not all of
Yeah.
them finish the race. So you're not worried when you're ahead and you're consistent. You're not really worried about if people are dropping 200 meters behind you.
Yeah.
So I think it's oversaturated, but I don't think quality is ever oversaturated.
Yeah, okay.
So invest yourself in becoming quality, and a word that we use a lot in our group is like undeniability. As in, somebody should be able to look at the product, and even if it's not for you, they can't say it's not good. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a
Just like
search
music
for
again.
shopping,
Just
you know?
like music, it's super subjective, right?
Nobody sounds like you. There are a lot of people trying to put their sound out there.
Exactly.
But the sharper that you are, the more you distinguish yourself.
Yeah.
So
You talked about competition. I just want, and I know we'll wrap up real soon here, but
Mhm.
in regards to competition and your competitors, obviously you have a lot because it's a oversaturated market, like you
Yeah.
said. Is that something that you're actively kind of studying? Is your competitors? And also, I always find it weird, the whole competition aspect, because like, just because I listen to this one artist doesn't mean I'm going to go listen to this artist. Or in your case, just because I like, look at this right now, Cream Montreal.
yeah.
I love
Shout out
this
to Cream.
brand. Yeah, shout out Cream.
Shout out Cream.
So I love this piece, but I also love this piece. These are
Mhm.
two competitors that I'm wearing, technically speaking,
Yeah.
right? So I always found that a bit funny because I do understand it's market share, this and that. But at the same time, it's like kind of people, I think they get too tunnel visioned on that aspect because like just because someone will buy your t-shirt doesn't mean they won't buy mine.
I think it's a little bit different than music in the way you said so before, because music is free essentially with streaming, right?
Yeah.
So just because you listen to one person's song doesn't mean that you're not going to listen to the other. True, because it doesn't cost you anything to do that. You already paid for Spotify, right?
Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
with
Yeah.
like, for example, between these two, it's great that you're wearing them, but you have the affluency to be able to wear both, right? But if I have to make a choice of one or the other, clothing is a choice of one or the other because people don't have. It's an exhaustive resource money that is.
Yeah,
right?
that's a very good point.
But I will say that every item, every product is sellable. If somebody is not purchasing, it just means that you're not targeting the correct demographic. So never see something as a loss. Always seeing it as something that's realigning you where you ought to be, right? If like, I don't know, rocker guys aren't buying my stuff enough, maybe I should stop trying to sell to rocker guys. Maybe the fact that they're purchasing from the person right next door is actually just pushing me towards the people who ought to. And there's a big learning curve in that in clothing brand, is that who you think is going to buy your stuff oftentimes isn't. You know, the demographic is completely different. So I think competition is an interesting thing because, again, I feel like the more you know yourself and the more you focus on building like that cult following, going back to the beginning, you shouldn't really worry about competition. There is no competition in cult, but you should be aware of the fact that other people are trying to, and use that as motivation probably to work harder out there,
Exactly.
rather than motivation not to try.
Yeah, that's I always had that perspective on competition and like jealousy. It's like I
Yeah.
find it weird because let's say hypothetically I see this artist that's doing amazing and has 3 million followers, but I think that their music is garbage compared to mine.
Yeah.
Instead of being mad and jealous and envious towards that person, I should see it as being like motivational because if they were able to do that, then I can too, right? Like,
for
do
sure.
you know what I mean by that?
I think it's also like investing in your ego in a positive way, in the sense of like, I think our team genuinely believes, and I personally genuinely believe, that if we do us to the best of our ability, there is no chance that people don't like fuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that. I think if Incognito is as Incognito, like we're in tune, we're really putting out pieces that are us, we're doing our marketing like the way we want to and stylistically. Like, I don't believe that we're a product that's not fuck withable, and I don't believe that we're a brand or a message that's not something that people are gonna mess with. Same way you have that faith in assault, right?
Exactly.
But if what I'm looking at is like, oh, I deserve my shine and this person's eating off of me, like eating off on my plate. Like, I think that's so bogus and egotistical. Like, who said your plate was nice to eat off of in the first place? You know what I mean? So have faith in yourself, but have faith in who you can be, and don't trust that you are that person right now. Just towards that direction. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, that's right. I think that's low-key a pretty good way to end it off.
Nice
Okay.
full circle moment.
That was
guys.
amazing, seriously. And
Yeah,
like,
so much
there's
knowledge.
so
I
much.
appreciate you guys.
Crazy.
I wish.
feel like
I'm
we're-
sorry, you guys didn't talk. Like,
No,
at all.
I'm just listening the whole time. Like,
Taking mental notes.
yeah, literally.
No. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
This is something that we've wanted to learn about for a long time, and honestly, I still have a million questions. But
Yeah.
you know, I could always text you guys.
Talked about like our first ever meeting.
Yeah.
I think that it's written for you guys. You know what I mean? Like,
is.
there's a Arabic expression. It's maktub. It means it's already written. So,
Okay,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
probably within the cards for you guys. You know?
Yeah, like it's for sure. It's an avenue that we can pursue if we want it. It's
100%.
more now. It's like, do we actually want to do it? Right?
Well,
Yeah.
I think you do.
You got a million
I
more
think
questions.
you
I
do.
think.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's
Do you have the time to do it?
yeah,
I
it's
think.
exactly that. It's like, do
Yeah.
I want to put my resources there when like my music is actually the main thing?
I feel like I'm
Thank
ready
you.
to start a clothing.
Yeah, I'm like motivated. Like,
motivated?
yeah,
Like,
you're gonna watch those videos now, eh? Mother- yeah,
So I'm a live.
yeah, that was dope. So thank you. I'm glad it lined up that we were able to make this happen.
Sure, for sure.
Shout out Incognito.
Oh,
Incognito.
Dyslexia.
Yeah. You should see me on my live streams. I'm reading these artist names and I can't pronounce anything right. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
guys,
so
like my bad. And artists try to be super extra with like weird names.
Yeah,
and shit.
X low, X
It's like, bro, like,
and it's
it's so
pronounced
stupid.
Zeld. You know?
Yo, the amount of times that happens now, I'm cold with it. I'm like, bro, I'm calling you like fucking whatever it is, like Dylan.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, thanks, Dylan.
exactly. Anyways, thank you. That was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Shout out to your whole brand. I love it. I could tell you guys you're doing dope product, but also the business is well structured.
Thank
And
you.
so I have a very good feeling of where you guys are headed towards. So I wish
Appreciate
you guys the best. You guys are amazing. You guys are part of the family. I mean, NSL is not just us, me and the boys. It's a mentality. It's a movement. It's just positivity. It's optimism, right?
definitely,
Never
most
stop laughing. So thank you for tuning in. Go check them out, guys.
Appreciate y'all.
Especially if you're in Montreal, you'll meet them in pop-ups and stuff. That's how we met, literally. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and if this can inspire you to start your own thing, amen. That's what it's all about.
Most definitely,
Seriously.
brother. Most definitely.
So thank you guys. Never stop laughing. Thank you for being here, boys. And that's it.
Woo! Dolphin noise.
Yeah.
that was
Thank you
amazing.
guys.